Welcome to What's Left, a weekly political discussion challenging the mainstream left. I'm Eduardo Abarca with co-host, teacher and socialist Andy Lipson, and community organizing socialist Kenny Cepeda. We are online at what-s-left.webnode.com. Quick reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe. I want to emphasize that for folks. Yeah. Today we will be discussing, by Andy's recommendation, an open letter called Dump Trump, Then Battle Biden. It is an open letter that was on an alternative website, independent media, signed by 55 progressive activists and writers, which we will be discussing by sections and responding to in similar format that we have discussed previous articles or videos.
And the one was the open letter about cancellation.
Right. So this letter was signed on the 23rd of September, 2020, and so we'll be discussing it. Maybe who will go first?
I'll just say that when we were going to discuss something else, we were going to discuss election thing. But when I saw this and I saw the response by fellow socialists who were kind of half supporting it, it became something I really wanted to talk with you all, because for me, this letter really is why What's Left exists today, because of what I think is happening to the left and what is emblematic in it. And it's very disconcerting for me. We'll talk about it, but I think one of the first things we were going to do was talk about some of the people who have signed on to it, because there have some people who are I feel like have been important on the left signing on to it.
Let's see. Maybe we can discuss some of the signatories from this letter to begin with, so we know what kind of folks are signing on to this and speaking from what kind of backgrounds we might know them from. Kenny?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there are two people that stand out that are very prominent, and I think are very easy to recognize. First one, I guess, is Noam Chomsky. You know, he's very critical of empire, and he's been an activist. And the other one is Cornel West. Cornel West has also disappointed me at times, but I mean, I do see value in instances where, for example, he corrected himself with regards to Obama. He was a big supporter of Obama. That whole election, and then he's been critical of Obama openly, and so I find that there is merit to that.
Some people who stand out here is Michael Albert, who is the person who runs Paracon and ZNET, the magazine and website that posted this. I've read a lot of things from ZNET. They're anarchists, but often they talk about revolution. They talk about taking down the state and replacing it with a revolutionary type of society, which is what Paracon is about. So they've been, people who I've counted on at times to be part of that left that is trying to hold itself up against the lesser evil in the Democratic Party. And then there's activists like Dan Labatz and Steve Early, who are both pretty well-known labor activists, socialists, who've written pretty consistently about the need for independent working class action and strikes and stuff like that. So to see them on here was striking.
When you shared with us the letter, Andy, who stood out for me was Paul Ortiz. I will show the book. This is Paul Ortiz's book, a really great book, an African American and Latinx history of the United States. He's a historian, and I felt he is one of the people who have most influenced me about mostly African Americans and Black people in Latin America and the history of them. The labor history, I meant to say just the specifics about labor history of what they've contributed to this country, and who has influenced me, as well as Andrei Grubetchik, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who I saw in an anarchist book fair here in San Francisco. He's a local activist, and who also contributes for the PM Press as a science editor, which PM Press is, I believe it's mostly Marxist and anarchist, a publishing press. So those two names stood out to me. I should say also Medea Benjamin, who I've seen on Democracy Now! Lots of times, and is a co-founder of Code Pink, and as well as a political commentator on many independent sites. So those stood out immediately for me.
So should we start?
Right. Okay. Yeah, why don't we?
So it's titled Open Letter, Dump Trump, Then Battle Biden. It goes, many people, both on the left and more mainstream, are now discussing preparations for the very real possibility that Donald Trump will dispute the results of the election after he has lost. Such concerns are well-founded, but such concerns should not obscure the most urgent task: defeating Trump in the election with as big an electoral college margin as possible to undermine his predictable efforts to steal the election. How does Trump lose? Trump loses only if Biden, however distasteful he may be, wins.
I think that right away they set us up with, there's nothing else. This is the only thing that can be done. We need to basically avoid a constitutional crisis, I guess. I think it's implied in there, because of the wide margin of, winning by a big electoral college, result. And so, I mean, I think I already feel trapped when I start reading this. I shouldn't even think about anything else, or I will be, because the only enemy here is Trump, no one else. And I think that also follows in the rest of the article, but that's just the beginning.
I understand this sentiment because in the last, 7 elections, Republicans have only won, I think, 1 of those 7, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyone can correct me, please, if I remember correctly, in the last 7 elections, Republicans have only won once by the popular vote. So, the Electoral College has been mostly weaponized and used by the Republicans to take over the presidency, and as well as gerrymandering, as well as stonewalling against the Democrats. So I could see why, especially after anyone has looked at the debate from last night, that Donald Trump is not going to concede. He's just simply not going to concede. And if anyone is going to dispute the results, or he will dispute them, and he will make sure that, as we discussed last week with RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, he said himself already that he's going to put Amy Barrett to make sure that he is able to then win this election. And he's already setting up people up by saying that it's rigged, that even before the voting, even before voting happens, the election is rigged. That is how he is already setting this entire thing up. So I can see why that from this, that there are well-founded concerns, as the letter is stating, and that Trump is going to use the Electoral College to be able to for his advantage. So that's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, I mean, probably some of this election stuff we might talk about in a future episode, so I don't want to get into it too much. But the Electoral College is a legacy of slavery that was established when the United States was established, and it's continuation, and it's continued after that, really for the benefit of both capitalist parties, for the benefit of the capitalist class, exposing really the sham of the democracy, because the public has never elected the president. They have never, not in the history of this country, has the public elected the president. The Electoral College has elected the president, and that's the way it works. And the other thing is that there are two capitalist parties who are trying to rig this election. The Republicans, I'm sure, are trying to rig it, but a lot of people and the liberals don't want to think about it, and the left doesn't want to think about it. There is something called the Transitional Integrity Project, which has been around for about 2 years, and it's composed of Obama, Clinton, ex-Obama people, ex-Clinton people, John Podesta, people like that. But also it has Colin Powell, McChesney, a lot of the neocons who were under George W. Bush, period. And remember, George W. Bush got elected under a completely sham thing. So in this Transitional Integrity Project is the liberal wing of these neoliberal Democrats combined with right-wing Republicans, and they are trying to make sure that Donald Trump does not steal the election by wargaming how they're going to make sure Biden wins. Let me be clear about that. They are wargaming, not how we make sure there's integrity of the votes. How do they make sure, under any conditions, Biden is installed as president? So we have two parties looking to steal this election. That's the situation, all right? And that's always been the situation. That's capitalism. So this is the thing and that's fine for liberals to get wrong. It's a tragedy that the left that gets this wrong. And the left suddenly thinks only one wing is actually a bunch of robber barons, and the other wing actually kind of cares about democracy. That's the implication. That's number one. That's one weakness. And number two, let's take this thing at its, let's imagine in this fairyland, Walt Disney World, Tinkerbell, wave your fairy wand, that only one party actually wants to steal the election, the Republicans. Is the best way to fight it the Electoral College and voting? When did the left stop saying that the best way to fight this is we need to prepare for actually a groundswell of strikes and actions taking place now in preparation for November and January and everything? Why is that not the call to action, particularly from labor activists and people who are saying that they, like, already, it's kind of what Kenny's talking about. They are not only falling into a trap, the people who've said they've been about movements and the working class are literally ignoring the working class and ignoring a working class response to this and talking about the one response that will actually do nothing, which is vote. So, and vote for the Electoral College to try to get a big Electoral College number. So it's a betrayal on so many levels that it's sad because these are people I've respected and they're, in a sense, kind of spitting on that tradition. So it's very upsetting.
All right.
I mean, just like it's just this notion that the Republicans alone are the ones with trickery, the ones not playing fair by the game. I think this is absurd, and especially like when you look at the past 30 years, which is, we're living the results of that, like when they've accelerated neoliberalism. And, we see who the biggest like pushers of that, project have been in building up, you just look at the elections, we had Clinton, we had Bush, we had Obama, we have Trump. And ultimately, there's one class that wins is the capitalist class in every election. Just like Lipton said, I just find it a little absurd and a little insulted, to make me think, force me to think in this box already, that there's nothing else more important. Like, your rationale has no room in this discussion. You fall in line basically, from the beginning. I can go ahead and read the next one. And so then, okay, they set us up, and now they ask, and how does Biden win? Biden wins if he gets more votes than Trump in swing states, so that his electoral college count is higher than Trump's. The electoral college should be gone. Electoral coercion, manipulation, and misdirection should be gone. The need to purchase visibility should be gone. The Democratic Party candidate should be Bernie Sanders or whoever would inspire your positive support. But none of that will happen by election day. So it undeniably comes down to this: help Biden or increase the risk that Trump wins.
I think, first of all, it's a little bit assuming that every one of us from the left, farther to the left, wanted Bernie Sanders. Because as I had said before, I had actually I had been a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016, and then we did an episode this year where I said that I just didn't feel Bernie Sanders was a representative of the working class anymore, or I didn't find myself to be as inspired by him anymore. So I think, whilst I agree with that, some of the things that they're talking about here, that the electoral college should be gone, the electoral coercion, the manipulation, yes, but it is assuming to think that we on don't want to say far left, but I'm just saying those that are beyond being progressives are for Bernie Sanders. So that's one. I do have issues with the way that this is written or delivered. Maybe it's their way of wanting to shorten this piece and not to make it so long, so it's more widely spread. But it just feels a little bit like, yes, we agree with these things and ignore them for now. It just, to me, the way that it is written, it is almost as if voicing these things don't matter right now. And the way that it is written is just the way it is delivered. I understand, I could see why they would write it this way. It almost seems as if you're trying to condense information into this open letter, but to many people, you're going to definitely push people to the side from the way that it is written. Just saying, don't worry about these things. We agree with these things. Whoever would inspire your positive support, it's like this whoever, but none of that will happen by election day. It's just very, I'm not too content with it. It's just not going to gather much support.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said about the assumption about the Bernie Sanders thing. The lines that stick out to me were, the first one was the need to purchase visibility should be gone. Did the teachers who struck in the red wave in West Virginia, did they need to purchase visibility? Did they purchase that visibility? They didn't purchase anything. They struck and it became national news. That's true with teachers in Arizona. Did the rioters that went and started to knock over cop cars after George Floyd got killed, did they need to purchase visibility? They didn't need to purchase anything. They just did it. Did the people who showed up with guns to say stop the lockdown, did they need to purchase visibility? No, they got visibility. Workers can get visibility if they take independent action. And these folks, like, they've already given up. They themselves have already given up on that notion. They've seen everything now through the lens of the capitalist class, and they're trying to drive people through that lens and weaken our cause. We don't need to purchase visibility. We don't. We just take action, and if our actions rise to a threat to the capitalists, we'll get visibility. That's the first thing. And then that part about electoral coercion, manipulation, and misdirection. That's what this article is. It's coercive, it's manipulative, and it's a complete misdirection to what we actually need to be doing. So electoral coercion, manipulation, misdirection should be gone, but unfortunately these 55 activists, Cornel West, Chomsky, Dan Labatz, Steve Early, Paul Ortiz, all of them have decided to not just engage, but dive deeply into the world of electoral coercion, manipulation, and misdirection, and tell people the Democratic Party is an alternative. I don't know what hypocrisy is too weak a word for this.
I don't think that they're manipulating.
Well, of course they don't think, but that's what they're doing. This is coercive, manipulative, and it misdirects. What else can you call it? So I know what they thought they were doing, but they think they're talking about Republicans. Unfortunately, they themselves are stepping now into the field of misleading.
Yeah. So Yeah, to me, it's like I almost find it like a comical, I don't know, cynical. The fact that they say the Democratic Party candidate should be Bernie Sanders or whoever would inspire your positive support. They're talking about trickery. They're talking about manipulating a system. And I mean, you have to be really blind to not see the blatant manipulation of these last primaries, against Bernie Sanders. I'm not particularly a fan of Bernie Sanders. I've stated that he's also selling lies, and he's complicit in the same thing, because he should have left the party if he really wanted to make change, or like really rattled the cage. But so going back to this piece, so really, like, you're talking about manipulation, and you blatantly forget that they shoved Joe Biden down your throat, as on the left, and now you're falling in line to say you have no choice but to do this. Swallow this blue pill, and it's gonna taste horrible, but there's nothing else you can do. So that is coercive. I agree with Lipson. That is forceful. Leaving you without options.
My response now will be better served as we continue with the letter. And what helps elect Biden? Voting for Biden all over helps ward off post-election Trump tactics. Voting for Biden in swing states essential. Voting for Biden in swing states is essential. Protestations that Biden is beholden to elites are true, but beside the point. The lesser evil is evil, but in this case, the greater evil is simply off the charts. Claims that not voting sends a message are true, but the message that not voting in swing states sends in 2020 is that we are okay with Trump for 4 more years, as long as we don't have to sully our hands by voting for Biden. Claims that more votes for the Green parties or any other third party's presidential candidate are necessary to win long-term progressive goals ignore the many ways that Trump's re-election, with his climate policies, his nuclear weapons policies, his undermining of democracy and the courts, and his racism and sexism, would obstruct all positive social change.
So for me, the part that stuck out most, honestly, was that stuff about the lesser evil. And it's just one of the lines there. The lesser evil is evil, but in this case, the greater evil is simply off the charts. This is just straight up lesser evil politics. And what's tragic about that is Mahdi's people have fought for years and decades against lesser evilism, and have said rightly that lesser evilism, it's the lesser evilism that got Bill Clinton elected, delivered us George Bush. It's the lesser evilism that got Obama elected, particularly in the second round, when the second presidency, second term, that got us Trump. They said that, and they're right, that those things are responsible. It's that kind of tactics that are responsible for bringing us down this road. And now they're just sweeping all of that history, which for me is at least 50 years of history since the 1960s. And they're just kind of like, okay, writing it off. And again, obviously, in my mind, lesser evilism doesn't work. But here's the principal core of why socialists and anarchists and radicals have fought against lesser evilism. Because we've been fighting for the idea that the working class, or the popular movements, if you don't think it's a working class, must be politically independent. And I think for socialists, that we say the working class, that working class has to become politically independent of any capitalist class and must fight for its own aims. Whether those are reformist aims, ultimately it's going to have to be revolutionary aims. We think it's possible, but it will not get there unless it becomes independent of those classes, of those capitalist classes. And here, they're just literally obliterating that in a single line and saying, we give up on working class independence. We give up. And that's outrageous. I mean, no, that's sad to me. Or rather, it's understandable because that's hard. But I will say that's what I think is behind this. This is not about Joe Biden. This is about revolutionaries giving up on the cause completely and saying, once and for all, we surrender. Honestly, I understand that feeling. but you can't do it. And a lot of these are older activists, and this is like Cornel West. I respect Cornel West, right? And many people rightly respect Cornel West. And he's using that respect and he's selling it to Joe Biden. And he's selling it to the Democratic Party. And it's outrageous. It's wrong. I shouldn't even say it. It's so unfortunate is the word that comes to mind. And protestations that Biden is beholden to elites are true, but besides the point, that is the entire point. That is not besides the point. The entire point is to say that Biden is beholden to the very same elites that Trump is. That has been the reason why we've been talking about the independence of the working class. So they sweep off, they say it's beside the point, and then they just go straight into lesser evilism. And for folks who have fought so long and hard against it, it's a shame that this has happened, but it's a tragedy to the left. It means the left is done, in my mind. But it was striking to see those lines written out like that, and these people reading that and then signing on to it. Say, yeah, sign me up. I agree with this. That's crazy to me.
I find a big issue with, again, continuing to try to explain that, this is the same monster, maybe the, multi-headed, but it still has the same body. In just this continued assumption that Trump is the worst, and no doubt he has escalated things. He has followed he's continued the work that any president of the United States has to do to advance the capitalist empire. No doubt, that things are getting progressively worse. But this completely separates this head, right, like from the body, and assumes that it's a different beast altogether. But even like when we really look at any particular issue, immigration, the economy, healthcare, fascism, on the streets, like straight up, policing, surveillance, bombing other countries, covert warfare, electoral manipulation of other countries. Name one issue where Obama and Clinton, haven't done the same and have advanced the same issues. This is just the beast without a mask, and I actually think this is a good depiction of what the beast is. Trump is not something different. He's the same beast without a mask, and he just says the quiet parts loud, but I guess we are willing on the left to be lied to. And we want to lie to ourselves, thinking that it's something in a whole different beast altogether. And that's what the concern is, that, we think we're going to be able to push back later. But like Lipson said, that's something I've learned in, not just in this country, but like in other countries, that, the failure of the left, has ushered in fascism. I don't think Trump is the worst yet. I think, as things get worse, as the divide of, the wealthy and the poor grows, as, climate change keeps pressuring societies and people, refugees. Oh, you think that the border is something bad right now? Wait a minute. In the literal job of the next president is to protect that and to advance that. Nothing else. And then do whatever they have to do to shove that pill down your throat.
This is not written that well, because this is, again, it's almost condescending. That forget these things. We know you're for them. We already know that you're already trying not to vote to send a message. We know that you think that the Green Party or any other third-party presidential candidate are necessary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not helpful if you write it in this way. Anyhow, because they even say it's true, but beside the point. I underlined it. It said true, but beside the point. That's not it. That's the word I was looking for earlier. It's very dismissive, and that isn't going to convince at least some of us that have align ourselves more with maybe socialist ideology, anarchist ideology, left libertarian ideology, or at least are very strong syndicalists. For some of us that would like to see a transition of this capitalist system to a socialist system, or have doubts about it, but still know that they are anti-capitalists within themselves and within their soul, and they're still trying to resolve those issues for themselves. I think I'm speaking to those people that this is very condescending, very dismissive in the way it's true, as I quote, but beside the point. It's again not well written, but they do say something that maybe you both are going to hound me for in a bit. They say, "What are you loud? You're distracting me the whole time."
I'm trying to think. How am I really going to go after Eduardo on this one? Go ahead. Sorry.
Just you wait. But they do say something that I know my two friendly friends here are going to want to wolf after me in a second. Trump has rolled back a lot of the positive social change that exists currently, and other long-fought social changes that have existed because of the movement, not because of Democrats, but because of the movement on the ground. Trump has rolled back a lot. And again, if this was written in a different way, they could have almost, I could have almost said, where do I sign? But, it's not very convincing the way it's written. But it is true. And there are many things that are at stake here. They mention it. The climate policies or environmental catastrophe that are counter the that more so contribute to the destruction of the environment. The policies that are in place, the rolling back of those policies, the nuclear weapon policies, the undermining of democracy. That's up for debate. But certainly taking over, as Trump boasted last night in the debate, taking over, occupying 300 court positions, and certainly saying last night, Trump said last night would not how do you say alejarse, Kenny? Would not alienate himself, would not distance. Gracias. Would not distance himself from white supremacist groups. He said when they asked him, name one group, I'll say something about them. Name one group. They mentioned the Proud Boys. He said, stand back and stand by. He did not distance himself from that group. So I can see that racism and sexism is going to be heightened under that administration and would obstruct all positive social change. I just have issues with voting for Biden. And one thing I should say is I've been sorry, I'm going off a little track here, but I have sometimes insomnia, and I write at night, and when I procrastinate, sometimes I watch these YouTube videos on apex predators, and I thought to myself the other night, and this is related, I promise. I thought to myself, where would I rather be? Would I rather be in the savannah where there are pride of lions, or would I want to be in open water where there are sharks and I'm not very good at swimming, or I'm not able to swim as fast away from a shark, or I'm not able to see underwater? And I said to myself, maybe everyone, this is terrible because I do love sharks and I do love pride lions and apex predators. I don't mean to also put a negative light on those animals. But I told myself I would rather I would rather be in the savannah where there are lions and there are panthers and there are leopards and in Africa, and I would rather be there and figure out a way to survive there than in open water where I'd probably die from anxiety more than a shark coming after me. So if anyone else wants to use a better analogy, they can. But that's how I think that they're trying to convince us. It's, look, being under Trump is going to be like being in that, my analogy, in open water, and being under Biden is going to be more like the savannah. Where would you rather be? Or for anyone else, choose your own analogy. And that's how I feel. I feel as if that's the part that is convincing, that, you know, you talk about Andy, and as well as you probably support this as well, Kenny, where what both of you are more worried about is World War III. I think that World War III could almost be ignited by someone that is unhinged, someone that is trying to go with war. If we had nuclear scares recently with North Korea in the beginning, I mean, it comes up. I remember when Trump was talking about North Korea, it was very scary to think that we might just be in a war with North Korea. So I'll leave it at that because there's more I can say, but I'm sure both of you want to respond to what I'm saying. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a problem with that analogy. Just like that is two separate things. You know, like you're in water, which, you know, whatever. Like they think that is you know, some people see the Democrats as a, you know, killer whale that looks cute, but it's still a fucking killer whale. You know, like you're talking about survival either way. Like the other thing is like North Korea really, like, don't you remember under Obama how constant the threat of North Korea was? You know, in Iran and all this, like it's not different. It's just that we keep buying this, you know, this thing. I'm not saying that this guy is not dangerous, you know, but so was Obama. So it will be Kamala and Biden, you know, and the threat doesn't come from a single person. It comes from a you know, this system that, you know, is voracious, you know, and I have a huge problem with fixating over Trump. You know, by and large, like I said earlier, like he probably is the best depiction of what this nation deserves. You know, he's a fucking celebrity, you know, person that became president, you know, and ultimately, you know, he's doing the bidding of the capitalist class. You know, he's not just acting on his own. You know, he's representing a structure, a system. You know, and just put whomever you want there. You know, it's gonna be dangerous. You know, because we're heading into that direction. You know, you brought up about policies on, you know, in this and that. You know, like I care about the environment as much as you do. Like I do. I just don't think that focus on single policies is gonna solve anything. You know, like we've seen the fires, we've seen all these things, the ice melting. You know, and we want to equate Trump to something worse than Obama, who increased fracking, who made the U.S. the biggest producer of oil. You know, who increased, you know, the militarization of police on the streets. You think those tanks run on you know, on whatever air? You know, like who increased the bombing of other countries? You think that shit doesn't pollute? You know, is that shit not racist? You know, is granting you know, pardons to CIA torturers not racist? You know, on behalf of some, you know, made up bullshit, you know, terrorist war? Is that not racist? That's my problem, that we don't see racism in Obama and in others, these you know, liberal people. And that's why a lot of people on the right are mad, because we defend these hypocrites. They're fucking hypocrites. And on that I align with the right wing. They are fucking hypocrites. So is Trump. Everyone's fucking lying. But we on the left, we stand on the moral high ground, you know, defending these war criminals that should be in jail. And we try to draw some like thin line margin of difference. That's what I have to say.
I hope anyone here does not read into what I had said that I am an Obama apologist. I have been on record on this podcast / channel where I have criticized Obama many times. It's just, if we want to compare, right, under which administration is best to fight under, again, I this letters, but we look at, for example, the Times Doomsday clock that in 2017 or 2016, after the U.S. president, the U.S. American president was elected, Donald Trump, the doomsday clock moved up the closest in history that it has ever been recorded. And this doomsday clock accounts for many factors, including war, including environment. The doomsday clock has been closest under this administration. And I'm not just talking about Trump. I'm talking about all his cronies, all of his minions, all of his henchmen, because he is, as the USA is one of the most deciding countries in this planet that affects a lot of countries, including my own country, Mexico. And the US American president is given a lot of power and given a lot of people who can choose to be advised by. It's not just Trump. It is the entire administration that is keeping this system in place. And yes, I do think that Democrats are capitalists. I do think that the Democrats are going to go after us. I do think the Democrats are also hypocritical. And I do not think the Democrats have ever contributed, especially to the immigration cause or any other positive social changes that we have. It has been the grassroots level, but the grassroots manifestaciones, the work that has been done, has only been able to be done under certain administrations. The movement has been able to carry forth and either with more obstacles or lesser obstacles. And it's difficult to say, but I mean, I'm going to also, I have a few things that I'll let Andy respond, but I have a few things also where I always talk about how we need to vote and why it matters. I have many National Geographic released 100 environmental policies where Trump either rolled back or created new ones that affected the environment. And this is why I'm telling you, if there is nothing that we have to salvage, if we don't salvage anything that's big, why even hop onto any train? Why even have a revolution? There's no need to have a revolution if you have nothing to save, if you have nothing to take care of. If we have nothing left, why are we even going to have a revolution? And I count war as well. But that's why I pointed out the doomsday clock is ticking, especially moved up higher under the Trump administration. But I'm not going to read policies now. Go ahead, Andy, so you can respond.
Well, I'll say where I agree with you. There's two major things I think that I agree on. One was where you said that this article was written to somebody like you, which is a person who sees that feels that voting can make a difference. It is written to you, and it's interesting to me that you find it not that convincing. Although I do think you find more echo in some of the arguments than I do or Kenny does, right? So I agree with you that it is written to you. It's not written in a vacuum, and it's attempting to reach people like you and say, "Come back into the fold." Fortunately, it's not that convincing for you, but that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to take all the Eduardos who are wondering about revolution. I'll hop on it later, right? Well, let's not hop on it all. That's where McChesney, that's where Cornel West, that's where Chomsky wants to take our Eduardos of the world. They want to say, don't even think about the train. Get on this train. Get on the Biden train. That's what they're trying to do. And so you acknowledge that. And so I would say that's unfortunate. That would do a lot of damage if it was more convincing. Fortunately,
if I remember correctly, I should say Cornel West did say, hop onto the love train and democracy now.
Now he's talking Joe Biden. So sorry, there's no more love. and this is serious because this is Joe Biden. Joe Biden and Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton, the Democratic Party, were part of the 1994 crime law, where basically Biden is saying, look, here's a quote. Every time Richard Nixon, when he was running in 1972, would say law and order, this is Biden now. He's criticizing the Democratic Party. The Democratic match or response was law and order with justice, whatever that meant. And I would say, this is Joe Biden, would say, lock the SOBs up. And that's exactly what they did with the crime bill. That's your anti-racism there. That's your poor Proud Boys antibiotic right there. That is the Proud Boys right there. That's the cops being turned. The cops are the source. Everyone knows that the cops have a bunch of these white supremacist folks in them. And that's the guy who wants to put 100,000 more people on the streets, give them the modern guns. So Proud Boys are nothing compared to the people that Clinton and Biden armed, who are white supremacists, and are white supremacists armed with the authority of the state behind them. And he knows it. He knows it. So he is far more dangerous in terms of fascism than Trump. That's number one. Number two, the environment. Okay? The Paris Accords are an attack on the environment. They are a profit-generating attack on the environment to take the thing and turn it into a commodity. That's why National Geographic could come up with 100 things that Barack Obama's doing, but they buy into the Paris Accords because they're a bunch of liberals and they don't believe that that's an attack. It is. It's the capitalist class, just like we saw in Planet of the Humans and all that kind of stuff, using its own method for going after the environment, turning it into a commodity and making profits off of so-called clean, green stuff, right? And then, like Kenny was saying, the war on terror, the war, the pushing of wealth to the top, and the attacks on immigrants that came as a result of Obama. What can you call that other than racism? So it does to try to separate that out is gets us to the last part, which is the part that I do fully agree with you on, is that what they're trying to do is to get you to say, okay, you can die in the water or you can die in the savannah. Where would you rather die? And that is the politics of hopelessness. It's basically saying there is no hope, there is no future, you're going to die. I mean, we're all going to die, but like our movements have no hope. So if we have no hope, where do we want to have no hope in? Do we want to have no hope under Biden or no hope under Trump? Maybe it'll feel better under Biden. That's essentially what they're saying. So in that part, I agree with your analogy, Eduardo, because in both cases, they're saying there's no fucking hope, it's over. And that is written into this document, the idea of hopelessness, because it gives up on the working class. It gives up on struggle. It gives up on the political independence. It completely gives up on that and says, let's sell ourselves, sell our souls. Cornel West, who's been a goddamn amazing speaker and activist for 30 years, he literally just sold his soul in a week to Joe Biden. And cashed in. He didn't cash in. He gave all of that credibility that he has earned. And all these activists have done that, and they handed it over to Biden and the Democratic Party and said, "These people are yours to do what you want, what you want now." And that is, and they've taken their hopelessness and said everyone has no hope, so give up. And that is what's tragic about this. This is why it's so upsetting. And so I do think your analogies are right. I think you're the audience for it, and I think it is to buy into this is predicated on the notion that we all have to accept there is no hope. You just have to decide which way you want to get screwed over.
And again, I mean, to me, I care as much about like anybody about the environment and say, in life and the world. And that's where I say, they're trying to sell their sense of urgency. I'm saying urgency, revolution today, revolution yesterday. We're late for that train, and so they're asking you to put that off, and someday we'll figure it out. And they just keep kicking the can down the road. That's their literal job. And so yes, I agree. It's hopeless. It's disheartening to read this piece. Really, they tell you fuck your dreams, basically. Fuck your illusions of anything else. Fall in line.
Where I agree with both of you is that this is definitely trying to they're like corral into the Democratic Party. Yeah. It's like trying to lead and corral it over. That is the problem of this letter. I agree with that. Where I would almost say that some of these writers, other activists would almost agree that there are still, you both have not even mentioned anything about what I said about the doomsday clock. Mm-hmm. There is still a threat under this administration, accounting for many factors. If you look at the doomsday clock, it's not just environment. It takes into account the war. What both of you have constantly talked about. When I talk about the environment, you bring up, well, I'm more afraid about nuclear war, and there won't be any environment. Yes, I understand, but this accounts for war, environment, It accounts for many, many factors. You can look at it. I would invite anyone, our audience, Jennifer, Caro, John, Jeremy, whoever's listening, because I know these folks that are listening. And some of them question me. And then they like what both of you say, and then they like to argue with me behind the scenes. So that's why I'm telling you all, like, Kenny and Andy are saying this stuff, but the doomsday clock has been, more minutes have been added under this administration. And if anyone is listening out there, this administration, in all of the record of history, this administration has moved that clock forward because of this administration. It has something to say. We have something to say because of it.
But you're assuming that they're objective, people as well. I'm surprised that maybe some of their names are signed onto this letter as well. I mean, like,
if you don't consider them, there's another reason why Scientific America decided after I don't know how many years they've been around, for decades, decided to endorse a candidate for the first time. I mean, there's so many organizations, the scientific community, right? So you might, okay, fine, one organization, the Doomsday Clock. What about another organization? There's so many organizations suddenly coming out saying this is something else. And if we don't put some halt or some pause to it and try to fight under a different sort of administration so that we can carry forward social movements, Trump is now implementing with a lot of Republicans ways to criminalize activists, to put them into prison. We're going to, I mean, does that not matter to both of you?
Hold on, and was that not happening before?
That was, but not this scale. I can pull it up as well.
Really?
Yes, not at this scale.
What did happen with Ferguson?
I can pull it up. I saw it. I remember reading this stuff. You see, that's why you listen to KPFA, everyone. Go ahead, Andy, or anyone else.
No, I'll leave it at the Doomsday Clock. I think those folks convinced me that I should vote for Biden.
Stop it, Andy. You're just don't start. This is what you're doing. You're doing what that letter does.
Okay,
you're being condescending.
Let's leave it at the Doomsday Clock thing, and let's move on to the other thing.
Yeah, we.
Well, I was just going to say, because I wanted to just, anyone can look this up. This is The Guardian, and I remember reading about this. Anyone can look this up. There are a growing number of states that are now turning protesters into terrorists, more than it has happened under the Obama administration or any other administration. Conservative lawmakers have put forward laws criminalizing protest in at least 18 states since 2017 that civil liberties advocates say are unconstitutional. Anyone can look that up. I will post it. So being told, oh, this happened under the Obama administration, yes, it did. I don't disagree. But the level that this is being heightened to is going. That's why they said, what did they say in their letter? They said, evil, something, 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 something. The greater evil is simply off the charts. Right. There you go.
Right.
All right. And if any of you both want to say something, refute what I say, please say it.
And again, like, I agree. There is an escalation, and it's not going to stop because the divide of the rich and poor is not going to stop. They're going to need more police and policing and criminalizing people. Treat us as terrorists, enemies of the state. If you dare to change, that's the literal job of cops. And so let's talk about this. Where is this criminalization happening? In liberal cities.
Yep. Democratic mayors, Democratic governors.
New York, San Francisco, Chicago. Where is this shit happening?
It's happening as well in conservative states.
Of course it is, but let's be real. It's the whole system criminalizing people. And we want to fixate it on just Trump. Fuck that asshole. I don't care if he chokes on a chicken bone. I don't. But let's just not stop there. It's him and everyone else. All the criminals of this system. That's my problem, that we get fixated on this threat. But guess what? We are going to have a huge threat. But we're saying we're living this, dangerous moment to fall into something, less dangerous. We're not. Things are getting worse. And so our job is to get political, get organized enough so we can fight that. But they're asking us in this letter to wait. Just go vote. It doesn't hurt anybody. So, that organizing had to start, years ago. but their literal job is to dismantle that. And this is another form of dismantling it.
Yes. I'll wait to respond to more. Yeah.
Should I read the next section? So, imagine it is late November. The mail votes are finally all counted. Everything is tallied, and Trump has scored an electoral college victory. That is what not voting for Biden in swing states risks. It is what not advocating we should vote for Biden. It is what not advocating we should vote for Biden in swing states risks. Ending the Trump presidency is by far the most important goal that can be achieved between now and January. Not voting for Biden in swing states won't bring on a revolution. Not voting for Biden in swing states will not make anyone the slightest bit more progressive, radical, or revolutionary. Not voting for Biden in swing states will not grow or solidify the ranks of opposition. But not voting for Biden in swing states risks immeasurably enlarging the obstacles that opposition will thereafter face. So it comes down to this: dump Trump, then battle Biden. Vote for Biden, at least in swing states, and urge others to do so as well. And then go on with the building grassroots movements for ongoing fundamental change. Signed, and Cornel West and all those folks.
I'm kind of skipping to the very last part. They're kind of already saying, basically, at least in swing states, we know you patsies in liberal states are going to vote anyway. We don't care about you. Yeah, and I mean, we were talking about that, just give up on, revolution and, just get on this train. And again, the hopeless that we talked about, hopelessness. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I've said my points.
It's patronizing. It's, I said, dismissive and condescending when you are being told some of the things that make people already disillusioned. When you say things, or this letter states, not voting for Biden in swing states won't bring on a revolution. I mean, I feel like I have said that to both of you in some shape, way, or form, but I don't think I would say that to people with such a large influence. I think I would say that just to both of you in some shape, way, or form, but that is not very uplifting. And so I find, again, issues and issues and issues with deliverance, and that's why people need to take writing courses. And I'm surprised that these writers and intellectuals and activists have signed on to this poorly written letter, but that's another issue. I think delivery is very important, that's why. But it's very condescending, it's very patronizing. It's not uplifting. And where I agree is that there is a difference for folks that are in swing states than folks who are in California. I forget right now. I think it's Missouri. I'm not sure which state. It's one of those states. I listen to lots of podcasts, and information comes and goes, ins and outs, right? It goes. It's one of the states where there's only one abortion clinic. And even that abortion clinic has lots of restrictions. I think it's very easy for us that live in California or that live in Nueva York or that live in any liberal democratic state. Hold on, Andy. Where people take for granted the services that exist. Immigration. One of my family, my cousin's family members live somewhere, I think in North Carolina, where here the immigration population and the services they get here in this sanctuary city of San Francisco comparatively are very different from how they receive services out in North Carolina. It's amazing, the difference. And so I will say that I will, maybe not you both, but I will acknowledge that it's very easy for me to say, I will not vote for Biden, or I will not vote for this person, or I'm just going to throw away my vote, when there are other people who have day-to-day services that are at stake for them, organizations that are at stake for them, if they don't vote at all. I would like to hear what both of you have to say to that, because I don't know how you can counter that. what the ideal thing would be is for the revolution to come. But as they say in a poorly written way, not voting for Biden isn't actually going to bring on the revolution. You're not going to get one from here to November or even next year, I assume. I presume, actually. Presume is different from assume because I kind of intuitively already know. So I'll stop there.
Well, I do agree with you that it's, condescending? That one paragraph about won't bring on a revolution, all that kind of stuff. This is basically a way of saying to young activists, fuck you and your revolution. It ain't going to happen. That's what they're saying. And so get real, get in line. So I agree with you on that. But they're wrong to say that not voting for Biden, that actually, if there was an independent left saying we don't give a fuck about Trump, we don't give a fuck about Biden, we're going to build our own thing, that would be very meaningful. But there is no independent left because here it is. These are the people who are supposed to be leading that thing, and they've dived into the Democratic Party. So they're absolutely wrong that would be a very significant thing for an independent left that was saying we aren't voting anyway, we're doing something else. We're taking the streets, we're taking our workplaces back, we're opposing these lockdowns. We're doing something else. We're not about the voting. Our timeline isn't January. What the fuck do we give about January? Our timeline is now. We have our problems right now. We're not waiting till January to deal with what's happening to businesses, what's happening to unemployment, what's happening to healthcare. We're dealing with it now. We're going to strike now. What the fuck who do I give a shit about January? That's the capitalist class bullshit game. So yeah, they're playing right into it and saying, fuck off, go do that. But here is the biggest lie to this thing. It's built into their title, which is dump Trump, battle Biden. It's a nice little rhyme. I like it. But there's no battle Biden if you dump Trump in this way. There is no battle Biden because the whole basis for driving people into the Democratic Party right now is the fear of Donald Trump. Do you think that fear is going to go away when Biden's there and then the next Republican candidate seems worse? Everyone has to fall in. If you fall in line with Biden now, you have to fall in line to preserve that if he gets elected. And that's exactly what happened with Obama, and that's exactly what happened under Clinton. That's why more abortion clinics were lost under Clinton than any president before. People don't know that. That was said by Nader. Okay? More abortion clinics were lost during the 2 terms that Clinton was on than any other president. Okay? Secondly, it's why the divide between rich and poor grew much bigger under Clinton than it did under Reagan. Under Ronald Reagan. Because the Democratic Party is able to smash the working class by getting it to go to sleep. And that's what lesser evilism is. Lesser evilism is a promise to never fight because we are too afraid of the alternative you're throwing at us. It's a promise to stay enthralled with the good cop because you're afraid of the bad cop. But good cop, bad cop is a system of keeping people in jail. So we're going to stay in jail. So there is no battle Biden if you dump Trump and you do it in this way of saying we have to unelect him because they will always be able. And in fact, we already know Biden is going to attack the left and we're going to have some kind of resistance, but it's going to be halting resistance because we can't resist him because the alternative to Biden is going to be right out there in the wings. So there's no battle Biden, just like there was no battle Obama.
And it's a downward spiral from there.
I take issue with your comment, Andy, about more abortion clinics were closed during the Clinton administration.
Take a look at it.
I'm looking at a Catholic website, and they're talking about the record on abortions. And I would like for you to just, if you could, just provide me.
Okay. It was something that was talked about in the 2000, when Nader went after them. It was talked about a lot during that time. That actually we lost more access to abortion clinics under Clinton than we did in previous presidencies. So that's just something that happened. They can say all they want, but that's what happened.
Right. Well, I won't delve into it now, but
okay.
I would like to look at it later.
Yeah, and I think that at some point we have to lose fear, right, of their laws, their impositions on us, and we'll have to create independent structure of power, and that's what we're talking about. And the only way to do that is to organize, in workers, hold the ultimate weapon to really defeat these people and say, "Fuck you! We don't care about your laws." You want to impose that fascism on us. This shit stops here. And so as long as we keep pushing that around, as long as we keep postponing that, shit is getting worse and worse every year, every presidency.
When we first started What's Left, I said something to Andy once, and I said, I'm a pragmatist. I don't know if this is a word out in the political sphere, spectrum. I'm just going to use it whether it's wrong or not. But I think I'll just try to identify my own word. It's transitionalist. Those of us that are anti-capitalist, those of us that either fall under the big umbrella of anti-capitalism, whether it is left libertarians, socialists, anarchists, and other alternatives to capitalism, those that are on the fringe, those that folks should be very wary of letters like these, because they can confuse you and disorient you and lead you and corral you to the Democratic Party. I don't think that the Socialist Party or the Green Party are going to bring us any revolution. I do think that as a pragmatist, as I'm defining a transitionalist, I'll just label myself that, and I'll continue defining that because I'm still looking for my ways around this. I do think that those of us, instead of saying the Eduardos, because I don't want my name to be used like that, the transitionalists out there, I do think that we have to be very wary, and we have to look at what is at stake, and we have to also understand that there are many different situations that any one of us could be in, whether that be in Missouri, whether that be in a southern state, whether that be here in California. And I'm not judgy for what people are going to vote, if they're going to vote for Biden. I agree with both of you on Biden's record as being upholding racist policies, as also being comrades with some of the most white supremacist folks in the USA. We can also look at Anita Hill, yes. So I'm not going to be voting for Biden. I have someone else in mind that I'm going to be voting for, but I will not throw away my vote. And I urge Jennifer, John, Caro, Jeremy, Cecilia, whoever's listening, and whoever else, whoever's on this audience, to vote. This is rigged already. The elections are rigged. I do think Trump's going to win, but I don't think that every election is a waste. And I was telling you right before we started recording, Andy, and Kenny stepped away for a little bit, that I was reading an article in Bay Nature. I subscribe to this magazine on Bay Nature, and this article was talking about some of the environmental changes and policies that have affected the Bay Area, the wetlands, where Measure AA in California that was done in 2016. Was it 2016? Measure A was adopted 4 years ago. Yeah, in 2016, where Bay Area counties approved the parcel tax that over 20 years will provide $500 million to restore San Francisco Bay wetlands and implemented flood protection and shoreline across projects that support wildlife habitats. Or your favorite spot, Andy, where under this Trump administration, because of the shutdown, Joshua Tree, the National Park of Joshua Tree, in Southern California, where you went with Brandy and you loved it so much, and if Brandy's listening to you, hopefully she'll help you vote some. That national park in Joshua Tree, where you both spent a nice, lovely getaway, it will take 300 years. 300 years. I have the article in The Guardian. The Joshua Tree National Park may take 300 years to recover from the shutdown because of vandalism, because of ruined trails, because trees have been cut down. And that has happened under this Trump administration.
In California?
Yes.
You don't want to
I'll send you the article.
You don't want to put Gavin Newsom's name on that too?
Of course. He's also guilty. He's not
okay.
part.
I'm sorry. Just want to
He's also guilty. Yeah. He's also guilty. But the shutdown was a result of who, though? let's get that clear. Under the Trump administration, it wasn't, Gavin Newsom doesn't have control over a shutdown, a government shutdown, right? I'll send you the article.
Oh, okay.
What, is it not clear? Because if it's not clear to you, it may not be clear to the
the
audience.
shutdown because they've gotten rid of a lot of forced upkeep since the lockdown stuff.
Yeah, we had the longest ever government shutdown under this administration.
But I'm also talking about COVID. I was thinking about the COVID lockdown, so I'm sorry, I got missed.
Oh.
Because there's been stuff there too.
So if we seem to think, this is what I'll probably end, this is the last thing I'll say, if we seem to think that the vote doesn't matter, it matters a lot, which is why one of the longest running scientific magazine has endorsed Joe Biden, which they should have endorsed someone else, but whoever, just not, well, anyhow, they came out in opposition of Trump because of the undermining of the scientific community. So I'm not judging of folks that are going to vote for Biden. This letter is horribly written, and there should be a better letter out there. And I hope that I implore folks to write another one and to redo this letter. And maybe they'll do one that is more convincing, and maybe I'll change my mind. I don't know. But at this point, I know who I'm voting for, and I hope that people vote.
Just about that shutdown, So I guess Trump just decided to shut it down himself on his own.
He has the authority to shut down the government.
Democrats had nothing to do with that.
The Democrats cannot say they'll shut. Well, they can, but Trump is the one who shut down the government. We did an episode. Who did it? Trump did it. He said himself, I will do it. Chuck Schumer spoke to him and said to him, you want to shut down the government? He said, yes, put it on me. I do want to shut the government. There are viral videos. I mean, he's fully responsible for the government shutdown. What are we saying here?
Sorry. I mean, isn't the shutdown, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the shutdown about budget, the federal budget?
Yep.
And, and maneuvering for one or the other party once. So, this may be another episode. I don't think I was on that one.
No.
But ultimately, what they're telling you is we don't give a fuck about your shit. Both parties are. Unless
the government shutdown that happened a year ago.
Wasn't it about a budget?
Was about, yes, it was the budget because the U.S. House, the House of Congress did not want to concede to Donald Trump's desire to have funding for the wall.
Which they gave.
And so Trump said, fine, if you don't do it, we're going to shut down the government. I have issues with the Democrats, of course, but I'm just telling you that was Trump's decision. And that was under where you want to move, Andy. You want to move in the desert and enjoy the Joshua Tree National Park and everything. Well, your national park and Brandy's National Park is being ruined. 300 years to recover. So, and this is under you saying, I don't want to vote, and just let it go like that. So,
well, if that's how you hear it, that's fine. I'll live with that. Well, here's what I would say that concerns me.
Oh, come on, Andy. You didn't come back with a punch.
No. Because I'm not going to talk about that, because what concerns me is these 55. There was a left built out of the 60s and 70s that believed in revolution. It's what the Black Panther Party came out of, the Chicano Power movement, Fred Hampton, Huey Newton, so many people who were revolutionaries who had a different idea of how society would be constructed and believed that was possible. And these people are the children of that legacy. And they have given up on that. And that is very sad. Because that guarantees there will be war. That guarantees the Joshua Tree place. My vote, I believe, has nothing to do with what will save the environment. I am saving the environment by not voting. That's my strategy. Okay, it's not like just that, but I'm saying I'm not going to fall for your thing of voting because I know you're trying to fool me into believing that this is what's going to do it. Instead, and now it's harder than ever. Instead, I'm going to try to organize a strike with my comrades. That's it. Now, that's been made more difficult with distance learning, but that is my fight, because I believe my fight is about something that's independent of that system. So voting is not independent. And so I We do disagree, Eduardo. I'm saving if you want to put it in your terms, I am saving the environment by not voting. I'll put it that way. By saying I refuse to go down that road, I'm going another road. And it is sad to me that these 55, some of these people actually helped convince me that that's a road I needed to walk. And now they're trying to take me back down that road. But they're not going to get me because I've already gone too far down. They're going to try to take people like you and others, young people, and they're going to be successful. They are going to be successful, and it's already been successful. The Black Lives Matter movement of young people is being co-opted into the Democratic Party. The Sunrise movement around the environment is being co-opted by the Democratic Party. One of the most auspicious movements that people were talking about, the anti-gun movement of young people, that's in the Democratic Party. They've collected it all. They're like the NSA of political minds. All right, they've collected it all, and that means to the extent that they've been able to do that, there is no hope if they are able to do that. The only hope lies with those African Americans who are holding guns. If they refuse to fight, if they refuse to vote, and instead they keep their guns and they wage their fight another way. If they do that, then I have some hope. All right, Cornel West has given up hope, but the one coalition of those, I can't remember, the not give a fuck, coalition.
Not
fucking around coalition. If they choose not to vote and say, no, we're going to hold on to our guns and we're going to go a different way, in that, there's some hope for our future. But only in that, because everyone who is fooled by this kind of thing is making it more likely that our environment is destroyed, that immigration and attacks on immigrants continues, that our prison system will grow, that the divide between rich and poor will grow, and that war is a much more likely outcome. Everyone who is fooled by this into that is rushing us towards that future. They are not preventing it, they are rushing us towards it. The only way to prevent it is to get off that train, is to say, no, we're going to build something independent. And these people have said, fuck that, we're going to give up on that. And they're using their years of fighting for independence to drag other people into it. And that's a tragedy.
What you said in the very beginning, I heard everything you said, by the way, and I sympathize a lot. And one thing that you said in the beginning, I will say, is that there is a light. There was a spark. Well, there's always been sparks throughout history of revolution, no? But there was a light definitely in the 60s. Something in the air, I don't know. Whatever we could talk about, but that revolutionaries that have inspired generations to come have definitely slowly have dimmed that light. And I will say that I have tremendous respect for past revolutionary socialists and anarchists, and I have tremendous respect for both of you and your core beliefs and your principles. And especially you as a long-time activist in socialism, long-time teacher in the Unified School District, as well as a very long-time hardworking syndicalist, union, in the union, as a union member. I have lots of respect. I do hope, Andy, that this, and that's why I said this letter isn't very well written. I do hope that people are not fooled. I do hope that people are not disoriented, because I don't want, and I'm not saying that I want to stay in the system and I want to be holding or keeping the screws on to this system. I do hope that when the revolution comes, that all of us that are maybe going to read this letter quickly move swiftly over. I do hope. And I have lots of agreement with you that the Black Lives Matter movement, that the Sunrise movement of young people, of young and environmentalists like Greta Thunberg, are trying to be, what do you call it? Well, I'll just use the word that came into my mind, kidnapped into their, because I was thinking secuestro and I couldn't think of another word. Kidnapped into their party, into their affiliation, and that is where I do fear. I just wanted to end by saying, so I'm just disheartened that there are adults out there in these high elite places that are trying to conspire to take over and kidnap movements that are largely being moved and mobilized by young people. And I'm just saying that I hope that the young people, like myself, the millennials, or even younger generation, hopefully they are not fooled by it. And that's all I wanted to say. So it's hard being in this very transitionalist mode. And again, you both know me with all my analogies. We're not necessarily we're not, it's like we're bats. We're not birds, but we're not also, it's like it's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to say that, that they don't get fooled easily. Anyone else? And then I'm done. Anyone else?
Justin, I'm thinking of titling this episode, "What's Left? ? Nothing."
I'm a little disappointed in you, Andy.
Why?
Because I prepared to receive 2 blows from 2 people, 2 big punches today. And I feel like Kenny did a good job, but should have done better. But Andy, you hardly came after me, and that's not what I expected today. I trained, it's like going and training jiu-jitsu today, all preparing.
Today I was going after these folks here, and you were being you were being more honest than they were. Let's put it that way.
You haven't learned the trick, Eduardo. To disarm your enemy, you have to agree with them, but not for those reasons.
I just, I mean, the last couple of episodes, I was beat up pretty badly. And then, and then all of a sudden today, I was like, I'm going to train today. And some of this stuff came up as we were talking too, but I just felt like, come on, Andy, you're not really doing a lot today.
Like, fight me.
Tired today or something.
Sorry. It was the letter. It took his heart away.
Yeah, and I'm engaged. I'm filled with love.
Unicorns and fairy dust. That was self-evident. But
now I'm gonna have to edit myself a little bit because I probably came out like really badly.
No, you were good. You good.
Right. There's just this one thing that I keep hearing in a lot of the liberal circles, I would say. It's just manifest good things. Like, just have good thoughts. And I'm like, motherfucker, you didn't think the people getting bombed are trying to not get bombed?
I wish that I'm thinking that bomb isn't landing on me.
Sorry, yeah.
Go ahead, man.
All right. That does it for this week's episode. What's Left is a weekly political podcast / channel challenging the mainstream left. We post information about our topics and our guests on the episode notes wherever you found this episode, or on our blog at what-s-left.webnode.com. You can find past episodes to this podcast / channel there and connect with us. I remind folks, if you like anything you have heard here, please share your favorite episode, rate, review, and subscribe to any of our 6 platforms. Make sure you turn on your notifications, thank you, Andy, to any of our 6 platforms on Spotify, iTunes Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, BitChute, or YouTube. And if you would like to give us feedback about something you've heard or suggest something for us to cover, contact us through our blog. Before we go, I just want to say, alongside with my 2 wonderful friends, happy birthday, Brandy.
Happy birthday, Brandy.
Happy birthday, Brandy.
And we hope that you have a wonderful weekend and more to come.
Thank you, Eduardo.
I'm Eduardo Barca with co-hosts Kenny Cepeda and Andy Lipson. Don't forget to vote. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Socially distance. Physically distance. See you all next time.
All right.